Hey everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm walking you through how I made a Halloween diorama of a skeleton sitting in an overgrown graveyard inside of a pumpkin. So I bought this fake pumpkin from Michael's and I'm just cutting a gigantic hole into the front of it with an X-Acto knife. Of course, be careful. What I'm doing here is absolutely not safe. Do not do this at home. I tried to cut this plastic skeleton with the same X-Acto knife and it wasn't working, obviously. So then I resorted to literally just snapping the joints off of the skeleton. I mutilated this poor skeleton because he was standing straight up and I needed him to sit down on a bench to fulfill the vision. So I chopped him up into little parts. You can see how much I fiddle with trying to get the pieces to stick back together again when I'm gluing them. It took a lot, but I needed him to fit in a sitting position. So for the knees, I bent the plastic, but didn't bend it so far as to break it. So I'm basically just gluing kneecaps right now. And then I set it aside to dry. And then I did the same thing with the other leg and then moved on to the arms. Tried to glue them together in my hands and then gave up and ended up just setting them on the paper and gluing them that way. Once all of the body parts are glued together and set off to dry, I started using some air dry clay to make a sort of base in the bottom of the pumpkin. In hindsight, this probably was not needed because I chose the medium-sized pumpkin and not the extra tall pumpkin. But my vision was to have the skeleton kind of sitting on a hill overlooking a graveyard. So that's why I decided to also add aluminum foil in there to kind of bulk up the back to kind of make this hill. The vision doesn't entirely turn out because the scale of things is not right. It's the thought that counts, right? So then I move on to painting the pumpkins and the bench. These are little jack-o'-lantern figurines from the Limax Spooky Town collection. I just made them a little bit brighter and added some life. And then this is the popsicle stick bench that I made myself because it turns out my skeleton was too large to sit on the other bench. So I'm just painting it with a thin coat of brown so you can still see the wood grain texture. And then it's not so lifeless looking. You'll also find out that your bench doesn't stand up by itself. While waiting for the paint to dry, I went ahead and started making the trees. I harvested a branch from outside because one of the trees in our front yard, the branch broke off because it was too heavy or something. And it had all these little branches. So I stole one and then cut it up into smaller pieces and made itty bitty little trees for my diorama. So I have 3 of them and I'm just kind of haphazardly sticking this moss to them. Does it really look like a tree? Maybe from afar. This isn't exactly what I had in mind, but it's what I had on hand. So that's what I went with. And I did this for every single tree. And I chose interesting shaped ones that would also fill the defects from the inside of the pumpkin that were made very obvious after I painted it. So yeah, I think they turned out. Before I made these trees, I ended up painting the inside of the pumpkin and I did not film it because it was a horrible experience and I did not want to have to show that or try and film it. So I painted the background, the sky, I guess, a purple color and then went in with my airbrush and did a gradient, which in the back turned out really awesome. The sides and the top, not so much. So then I tried to add black and then it kind of made like a smeary mess and not so great. And then I painted the ground brown. Now what I'm doing after gluing in the wall and the bench is I've used tacky glue, smeared it around with my finger, and I'm just sticking in small chunks of moss into the glue. And I continued this for the entire pumpkin. So the moss is going to try and fight you. It's going to stick to everything except what it needs to stick to. So if you plan on doing this yourself, beware of that. If you saw my whale sculpture video from like a year ago, then you will be very familiar with this process because it's the exact same. And using the moss instead of something like static grass just really gives it that overgrown look. So like I said, we continue that with the entire base of the pumpkin, even so far as to carry it along the outside edges of the pumpkin, doing the same thing, spreading that glue with my finger and then sticking on small moss pieces. And that just kind of makes it look like the moss is growing outside of the pumpkin, and it also hides the kind of unsightly edge from cutting the hole out of the front of it. After all of the moss is secured, it's time to glue in Mr. Skeleton and glue in the trees. So the trees were glued in prior so that they wouldn't fall over while I was trying to put the skeleton in. I've hot glued him in place, and then I realized that his left foot was really high off the ground. So then I fiddled with him forever, dislodged him, and had to glue him back in there again. Eventually I got the leg to stick down where it needed to go, and then once it was all stuck down, I started gluing in the rest of the decorations. So I'm using hot glue just because it sets really fast, and it's late at night when I'm doing this. So I have the large pumpkins at the back and then the smaller ones at the front to kind of try and simulate that distance. I don't know if that really came across like that, but that's okay. I used my lovely 10-inch tweezers to place this one pumpkin because it was kind of in a tough spot, and then they got stuck in the bench. So again, just great for me. Then I have these itty bitty little tombstones also from Michael's, and I hot glued them in place as well. I think that this part turned out really cute. I love the little decorations. It really just ties the whole thing together and kind of gives your eye something to follow around the whole diorama. So once all of the tombstones and pumpkins were put into place, that's pretty much the rest of it. So it was definitely a long and tedious process. I cut out a lot of the footage because it was either really blurry because my camera couldn't focus because my hand's constantly in front of something, or you can't see because my hand's constantly in front of something. So a lot of the footage was cut out. Took a really long time, but I am really happy with the way that it turned out. I think it's really cute. I don't know where I'm gonna put it, but I'm happy with it. So without further ado, here are the final shots of it. I tried to do a cool transition and set myself up for one, but I started this process literally 2 months ago. So this is it. Enjoy the view. I'm going to take you around the side, kind of give you a look on the inside, and then I do include some pictures at the very end. Actually, I think it's just one picture, but I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to my channel. Let me know what you think of the diorama. Anyways, I hope you have a lovely week, and I will see you all in the next video.